Hey guys, welcome back to the Nerd Corner podcast. This is Discovering Eden,
My name's Brandon.
and I'm Jonathan. That was awkward.
Guess what? No edits. So have fun with that.
As per usual, we're going to start with a little prayer, kind of getting our hearts ready for what we're going to be talking about today. So we can start with that. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this time to engage with each other, with you guys, just about different things that we enjoy talking about, and hopefully you guys enjoy listening about as well. Lord, we just pray that you guide our words, that whatever we say is from you, and what's not is forgotten, Lord. We just thank you for this time, and we pray for your guidance, your wisdom, and your blessings. Amen.
Amen. Now we're going to try something a little bit different. So we have some series bumpers that we're going to be playing. So kind of during some of the series that we were kind of going through already. So it's named Cultural Intake, and so hopefully you'll like it. Yeah. So we'll get right into it and catch you guys after it. Alrighty. So, movies.
Everybody loves them.
Movies.
Unless you're...
Not the biggest fan of movies, to be
Okay,
honest.
you know what? I'm out of here. You just negated my starting statement.
You
That
know what?
everybody loves them.
Everybody does love them in one way or another.
Except for Brandon, who just said he's not a big fan.
Hey, you know what?
Broke my heart.
I'll watch something every once in a while. So, something that I kind of want to lead into the conversation about is something like, what makes a good movie?
Explosions? No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's valid. That's very valid. We like who doesn't like pyrotechnics? I mean, that's fun. Boom. Who doesn't like explosions? I mean, just ask the Mythbusters. I can't even speak. Mythbusters. Let's blow up a concrete mixer. Yeah. Shockwave. Shock factor. Shock value. Anyway. So, I kind of did a little bit of research before doing this, and kind of what the top genres of movies that people are, buying or, using to, I guess, entertain themselves. So what makes movies popular? So, according to Statista, for the US and Canada, in billions of dollars, so note that billions, from the time of 1995 to 2023, the top genre of movie, for how much it made, at $66.02 billion, is the adventure genre.
That checks out.
Makes sense. Followed by, at $55.56 billion, the action genre. Which, I mean, I kind of assumed they were like the same thing.
That's what I was kind of going to just say, is it feels like they are often lumped together.
They're
like
often associated, I would think.
action, adventure.
Okay. And then the next one, at $36.35 billion, is drama.
Again, I feel like these are all kind of very shaky genres.
And then the fourth one is actually a tie with $34.3 billion, so not too far away from drama, is comedy and horror.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is, interesting.
People like to scream as much as they like to laugh.
And what I thought was really funny is dead last is educational.
That's... Where are you pulling these stats?
Statista.
The only people I associate with put education at the top of their list.
Oh man. I guess we're missing out. So apparently that's at not even $1 billion. It's not even at 100,000. It's 28,000 something. Yeah, it's pretty low. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just found it interesting. The documentaries is actually the next one below.
Below education?
No, not below education. Below like thriller horror.
Oh.
Thriller is technically below horror. But again, those seem like the same thing to me. But well, I digress.
I'm gonna be honest, I zoned out for a second, so I feel like when I picked back up to the conversation, I was like, when you said they're the same thing, I was thinking thrillers and documentaries, I guess. But...
What a thrilling documentary. Riveting, if I do say so myself. So when we look at some of the top grossing movies of all time, so some of the best movies, quote unquote, ever made, it's interesting to see what we find in the top 5, because I looked at the top 5. Now, you can believe or disagree with this. I trust Wikipedia a little bit more nowadays than, I used to.
I've never not once trusted Wikipedia.
So, take that for what you will. It did a lot more research than I did. So, take that. I mean, I researched it.
Straws here.
Yeah, whatever. Because I'm like, they know more about it than I do. Like, I wouldn't know how much things cost and whatever for all that over time. And this is for their lifetime. The first one I'm going to say for top grossing movies of all time currently, and then adjusted for inflation afterward.
Okay.
So I'll go through the top 5, then go to the next top 5. You'll see some similarities. So the top one at $2.9 billion in revenue is Avatar, the very first one, which was kind of seen as before its time for animation and what have you. Solid. I understand why it's there.
Yeah.
The next one is Avengers Endgame.
Also checks out.
Also checks out.
Superheroes. Yeah.
Number 3 is Avatar. Oh, and I didn't say the Avengers one. 2.8 billion. And then Avatar: The Way of Water is number 3. So the next one in line.
So really, to be successful, you just have to be an Avatar movie.
I guess. And that's at 2.3 billion.
Okay.
Number 4 is Titanic.
Also checks out.
At 2.25
Wasn't Titanic
billion.
also directed by the guy who did Avatar? Or am I thinking of the wrong?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure.
I'm gonna look it up. You keep going, because that's gonna be wild to me.
I know technically there was a re-release of Titanic, so that may have caused the numbers to go up a bit, but either way, it's a movie that mainly everybody knows. Like, I know it. I've never watched it, but I know it. And then number 5 is Star Wars: The Force Awakens at $2 billion.
James Cameron, the director of Avatar, is also the director of Titanic. This guy's onto something.
I think this guy's good. Give this guy a raise. Oh wait, he
Or
probably
just
makes
bribing everybody.
or he just makes a bunch of money. I don't know. So yeah, Star Wars: The Force Awakens is the 5th one, which I mean, for like modern, like, people were wanting more Star Wars. So when it came out the first time, so The Force Awakens, yeah, it was successful.
Makes sense.
So it makes sense. Now, what I really find interesting is when you adjust to inflation. The first top grossing movie of all time, Gone with the Wind. 4.3 billion. Adjust for inflation. Which I think that movie came out in like the 1930s.
Yeah, I can get an exact date for you in a second.
So, crazy.
Yeah, 1939.
1939. Yeah. Followed by Avatar. So
He's back.
He's still up there at 3.95 billion. So it's still a lot. So Avatar remains authority. Yeah. And then the third one is Titanic at 3.67 billion.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is Star Wars: A New Hope at 3.56 billion. So the first of the original trilogy, right when it came out, which personally I think is way better than The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
Come at me.
you're gonna have that one guy who thinks Force Awakens is better come at you.
Okay.
You're gonna leap
Bring
through
it
the
on.
screen, just chokehold.
And then number 5 is Avengers: Endgame.
Okay, so it's very, very, very similar.
Yes, there's still a Star Wars, there's still Titanic, there's still Avengers, there's still Avatar,
But we do have Gone with the
but
Wind
we have
on
Gone with the Wind that is gone because it's number 1. So a similarity that you almost see with a lot of these is the hero narrative, and why I think some of these movies are popular. Not to mention, superhero, kind of makes sense. Avengers, all that kind of stuff. So, looking at what a hero is, what is a hero? How would you define hero, Jonathan?
My gut instinct is to say, oh, it's the protagonist of a story, but I know that's not necessarily the case. The hero is somebody, in my mind, who fights for justice, who fights for good, and wants the best for the world or their community or what have you. That's at least a very basic.
Yeah, the bare bones kind
Yeah.
of. This is a hero. So first, I'm going to give the dictionary's description of what a hero is, and then I'll give my own. So the Merriam-Webster dictionary describes a hero in like 4 ways, but first way is a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability. Another one is an illustrious warrior, so with accolades and everything like that.
So basically me.
Oh, yes. The third one is a person admired for achievements and noble qualities. And the fourth one is a one who shows great courage.
I can get behind all those definitions.
And so one that I came up with, my own definition of what a hero is.
From the Brandon Dictionary,
From
not
the
the Merriam-Webster.
from the is a person who sacrifices themselves, whether financially, physically, emotionally, whatever it is, for the sake of others. A figure of hope and a guide that serves as a signpost for great courage or noble deeds done through sound character. Is it partially borrowing from some of those things? But yeah. But I think the dictionary does a good job of describing what we would perceive a hero as. Something that separates mine particularly is the idea of sacrifice or self-sacrifice. And you see this in some of the movies as well.
I feel like you see it not just in some, but in most stories there is some semblance of sacrifice, because I think intrinsically we see that there is something heroic about
Laying down
your own desires, yourself, even for
for
the
another.
betterment of somebody
Yeah.
else.
So, why would hero movies, in particular, kind of going into like the Marvel universe, DC universe, like X-Men, all that kind of stuff, why are those kind of movies so popular? And what makes it so popular? For me, it's that clinging to that hope, overcoming the odds, that underdog story. Like, it's saving the world. But obviously, it's saving the world is kind of generic in a lot of the superhero movies. But it is a focus. And particularly focusing on saving those that need help. Whether they realize it or not. And in some movies, they don't even realize they're being attacked.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Because it could either be psychologic, it can be physical, obviously, or emotional. There's a lot of different aspects of these movies that they've kind of gone into that kind of pique your interest a bit. Now, I'm not a movie reviewer or anything like that, so don't expect that much.
He's lying.
Am I lying? Are you sure?
No.
No? Okay. So, within the past couple decades, one of the most popular genres is the superhero.
Makes sense.
Given the meteoric rise of Marvel Universe,
It is a
and
constant
DC,
influx of
there's like every year there seems to be another movie.
another 6 movies, even sometimes it feels like, which is hyperbole, obviously, but I mean, you look at Marvel's release schedule and it's wild
Crazy.
sometimes.
Let alone the TV shows. Let alone. Like with Shield and like
Yeah.
some of the other.
I've fallen off of Marvel. I used to be really, really into it. The MCU though it's lost me in recent years, to be honest.
Yeah, so I kind of did a little bit of digging, as in what started this superhero craze. And the first comic to ever come out of a superheroes was Phantom. Actually, was the first superhero by DC, and this was in 1934.
Wow.
1934. So it makes me think, like, during this time there was kind of like a little bit of turmoil, I would say, especially given like the wars and everything that were going on. So this idea of hope and someone that can save the world really makes sense, and it really resonated with a lot of people to get to where it is today, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, people probably think Superman was the first.
That's where my mind initially went.
And
Superman.
honestly, I thought that was the first as well, but it's actually Phantom.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very
I've
interesting to me.
never heard of Phantom.
Neither have I.
He just up and disappeared, I guess.
Like a phantom.
I don't know. Sorry, DC. But yeah. So obviously, when I think of hope, I think of A New Hope from Star Wars, which we'll get into that next week, as that's a huda for me for different things and themes that run throughout, and just the whole Skywalker saga, minus the newer stuff. I was okay with the first three. The first three they added, like Phantom Menace and like all that stuff, but the last three, like starting with the Force Awakens, Force Awakens was okay.
I would agree. I think that new trilogy though, it fell off hard and fast. I mean,
It started okay and then just
and even Force
dropped.
Awakens though is kind of just a retelling of New Hope in a way.
Yeah,
It's-
Force Awakens. Yeah, it's basically a retelling, which is why I think it did the best of the three.
Yeah.
But A New Hope just does it better.
It's hard to beat the OG.
Yeah, can't beat the OG in my opinion. Gonk droids all the way. So, and then another thing that I find, and tying this back into like the faith conversation, is the idea of like a David and Goliath story. Like, I don't know how many of you watching have heard of the term David and Goliath or David versus Goliath, but I feel like it's a phrase that a lot of people know, regardless of their faith background, of basically that underdog story. And going against the odds. I mean, you have David, who is a child.
Quite literally the underdog.
And going against a literal ginormous warrior. Quite literally giant. And winning. By chucking a rock at his head.
As one does.
As one does to defeat that when everybody was peeing their pants. In fear. So, and honestly, even in media in our own day and age, like, I think of Survivor just as, I mean, we both like the show Survivor. I liked it more earlier on.
That's fair.
More of the more recent seasons, I'm kind of iffy on.
See, I
But
I would mostly agree. I think with the newer seasons, they started really weak. They've
Yeah.
picked up. They've learned a lot from their
Yeah.
mistakes. But I would agree. Some of the older stuff it's where it's at.
yeah,
Um,
they just need to get out of Fiji. Like, bring it back to, like, I don't know, like Africa or some of those
Just
other
go somewhere
places.
different.
Yeah, go somewhere different. What about have Survivor in, like, Alaska?
I think that'd be pretty cool. Kind of a colder.
Yeah, a colder
environment.
environment. Obviously, it's a little bit more dangerous, but
Nah.
it's called Survivor.
Okay,
come
in
on.
Survivor Africa though, they had barbed wire around their fence or their camp to keep out
I
wild
mean,
animals.
that's fair. Liven
Dangerous,
it up a little.
dangerous.
Give more different challenges than water challenges.
That's fair. But bringing it back to the conversation
Yeah.
before we get too unhinged.
Yeah. Yeah. So Survivor season 37 was known as David versus Goliath.
Peak season, fantastic season.
So again, mainstream, noting the name.
Even in that, in a reality competition, there is this intrinsic desire to root for the underdog. Even though, from a gameplay standpoint on that season, everybody starts in the same place.
Yeah.
They all have the same resources. They all have, the same starting point in the game. And yet you somehow still root for the David tribe in the game. Because there's this perception built around it that they're the underdogs. It's interesting. Just
fascinating.
Yeah.
Now we went a little bit off sidetrack just with the Survivor little notion, but getting back to the superhero hero narrative, one of the movies that I'd like to take a closer look on is Thor of 2011.
Bit of an underrated Marvel movie.
It is an underrated, honestly, one of my favorites. Captain America is also up there.
The first one?
The first one. I mean, I know that some of the newer ones get more clout, but it's the originals that I think kind of stood out a little bit more.
They definitely stand out more now after the, like we said earlier, the severe influx of movies.
So, what was something that stood out to you in Thor?
That's a great question. I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but the thing that immediately jumps out to me is kind of that sibling rivalry kind of storyline between Thor and Loki. And that's covered throughout a lot of those movies, kind of their back and forth, but it's especially apparent in that
Squirrel.
in that first movie.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. Like, the back and forth, like, the relationship between Odin, Thor, and Loki is an interesting case study to, like, look at it, especially given, and you kind of learn in this movie, kind of Loki's beginnings.
Yeah, his origin story.
His origin. Obviously, clarification, Norse mythology and Thor in the Marvel Universe, not related whatsoever.
Very different.
Very different. They borrow a lot of the same names. They are not even remotely similar. I mean, part of it is, but not.
It's very loosely inspired.
It's very loosely inspired, yeah. So put that clarifier out of the way. It's not the same thing. But I did like some of what is done. So to kind of give like a brief synopsis of what happens in the movie, so spoilers, but it's been out since 2011, so if you haven't watched it, you probably wouldn't have. So so Thor, basically the frost giants are attacking, or basically enter and infiltrate into Asgard, which is the realm where Thor is in like I don't want to say heaven because it's not heaven, but it's in space somewhere. The Bifrost Gate, all that kind of stuff. Wherever that is.
In Norse mythology, it's on the tip of my tongue. Like, what?
I can't
Valhalla? No, that's not it.
No, I can't remember exactly, but
we have technology.
there's somewhere.
Is it Asgard?
Yeah, Asgard.
It's Asgard.
Well, yeah, I said Asgard, but I'm like, where is Asgard? And I'm like, it's a realm in space somewhere in the wormholes and everything like that. So basically, Thor is basically cast out from Asgard by Odin because he wanted to go and attack the frost giants. Kind of hot-headedly, in his arrogance, a little bit of scheming done by Loki under the scene, behind the scenes.
Sneaky.
So he's cast down and banishes, Thor to Earth and throws down Mjolnir down to Earth with him, and saying that only the worthy can pick up Mjolnir and wield it and gain the power of, Thor, the god of thunder.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, Thor has some difficulties adjusting.
It wouldn't be a movie if he didn't.
Yep. And obviously, there's the whole romance kind of thing, but honestly, that's just kind of Hollywood.
It's a subplot.
It's a subplot. At the end of the day, I don't think it carries much weight.
Especially not in the first one.
No.
But
it's there. But I think the real kind of meat and potatoes surrounds the Thor, Odin, Loki.
Most definitely.
And all that.
Family drama.
Family drama. Yeah. What a lot of stories tend to have. So Loki, throughout the movie, learns that he's not pure Asgard, and that he's actually a frost giant, and that Odin took him from Jotunheim as an infant and raised as his own. And from this, Loki is confused and angry because it's like, why?
Yeah, everything you knew was just kind of...
Everything you knew was a lie.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Which gives character to Loki.
Oh, for sure. It makes him almost more, even as an antagonist, as a villain, that it gives some sort of sympathy to him.
Yeah. And to be honest, now, my family has history with, foster care and, adoptions and stuff like that. It's a really real thing.
Yeah.
Where you're told later in life, or you find out, that it wrecks your world. Or it flips it upside down, at least. Where you feel for Loki.
Yeah.
And especially for me, I can see that coming from my own point of view and background. And it just hits a little bit harder.
For sure.
And that's a plot that I think goes underappreciated or unnoticed sometimes.
Yeah.
So basically, Loki wants his father's recognition, because he always thinks that Thor is favored because he's pure Asgardian, he's not.
Well, that's a very human plot.
Which is
very
it's that jealousy.
It's like if you've grown up with siblings, who hasn't, had that sort of jealousy towards their siblings at some point in their life, and was like, why does mom and dad, seem to,
yeah,
whatever.
Why does he get a cookie and I don't? Why am I in the corner?
You've had 4 cookies, Brandon.
I want 5. Yeah, so basically, at that point, then Loki kind of turns to, okay, I'm going to take out the frost giants in place of Thor, just so that you know,
get
my
the
father,
attention.
Odin, will see me as saving him. So he basically allows the frost giants to come into Asgard to quote unquote take Odin's life, and then Loki's the one that, haha, I'm actually the one that saves, and you know,
Trying to put the spotlight on him.
Yeah.
In maybe a very, well, not really maybe, but a very dubious
yeah.
way.
And then at that point, Thor comes back, stops Loki from basically annihilating the frost giants' world. And yeah, and then Loki slips into wormhole stuff, and you know, obviously they have to make more movies,
Yeah.
so you know they continue it that way, and they link it with the Tesseract for Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Marvel universe for a reason. Everything's interconnected, which again is interesting.
For better or for worse.
Yep. But again, that's kind of the brief synopsis. Obviously, that's there goes my backpack.
Just ignore that.
Just ignore that. That was so the camera might be flickering a little bit because of the wind, which hopefully you don't really hear all that much. But anyway, so let's talk about Loki,
The infamous trickster.
which, yeah, I knew this was gonna happen. All right.
You want me to go get the backpack? Go on a
No,
little
no,
field
it's
trip?
fine. You know what? You'll suffer with us. Anyway, what are some of you? What makes Loki a good character for you?
I think it's a lot of what we already talked about, right? Is he's got that intrinsic human storyline, despite being, quote unquote, a god.
The god of mischief or whatever.
Which is, you know, you say the god of mischief, but there's something very sympathetic about him.
Yeah,
Even as, and I said it earlier, as a villain, you still, I don't want to say root for him, but there is something that endears you to him. And I haven't seen the movie in a long time, so it's hard to, you know, remember everything, but I always liked his character. Just
yeah,
his story, his background, his portrayal, all that stuff. Very vague, but
yeah,
going off of memory here.
yeah. Honestly, Loki is probably one of my favorite characters
Yeah.
in the MCU, just because of the storytelling behind Loki. And I mean, the actor behind
Does a really
Loki
good job.
does a very, very good job at, you know, basically being that character of Loki. There is a little bit of that mischief side,
Yeah,
which
course.
they incorporate from Norse mythology.
but I think they do it very well.
They do it in a very well and relatable kind of
Yeah.
way, which makes you feel bad for Loki. And something that that kind of stood out to me, and tying this back to faith and kind of that one of the themes there, is maybe it's a weird take, but I kind of see the sibling rivalry between Thor and Loki kind of like Cain and Abel.
Interesting, yeah.
Now, obviously there's differences, because Thor is definitely not Abel.
Yeah.
But he is favored, quote unquote, even though technically God does not favor Cain over Abel or Abel over Cain. They're the same in his mind, like his eye. But Abel gives the first of his crops, whereas Cain does not.
Yeah.
And the part that really is similar, like makes it similar, is Cain is jealous of Abel.
Mm-hmm.
Because of what he assumes to be that favoritism. So, obviously, Cain kills Abel, saying, but basically to God, it's like, why am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
Why would I know where he is? It's not my problem. Kind of a snarky, response back, snap back. And it's that jealousy. And And to be honest, it makes me feel for Cain a little bit. Because I can't imagine you would dislike your brother so much that you would just be done with it then and there.
Yeah.
Like, even Loki wants a good relationship with his brother, Thor.
But he's also desiring that
But
approval.
he wants that approval. He wants that power. He wants to be in charge. Even though he says the opposite of that in the movie. And it's kind of like that. Like, something that sticks out. Like, I put a couple of quotes that I thought were interesting. Where they were in the movie, I'm not entirely sure, like, timestamp wise, but I have the quotes at least. So one of the quotes, which Loki talks to Thor, saying, "I never wanted the throne. I only wanted to be your equal."
That is interesting.
Which I'd have to understand it a little bit more in context, so I'd have to, watch the movie and do it, because taking some of these quotes out of context could say one thing or another, because we do know he's a little bit of a trickster, so he could be getting in Thor's head, that kind of thing. But if true, and he just wanted to be equal, I think that's relatable.
Oh, for sure.
And it's basically Loki trying to, I want that same favor. Like, why can we both not be, the princes of Asgard? Why is it Thor that gets it? Why not me? Is it because I'm a frost giant? It's fueling into that idea. And this is when this next quote is from Odin, speaks to both Thor and Loki when they were little. Again, wise words. And he says that a wise king never seeks war, but is always ready for it. So in that preparation, so again, it makes me think of, like, God's slow to anger and, like, everything, but is willing to, like, fight to stick up for, or, like, he's not afraid to, like, I guess, side with.
He's not afraid to be decisive.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it. There's maybe a way to
decisive. Put it. Yeah. He's like, it's not the God of the Old Testament that everybody thinks of. Well, I will smite everybody that, disobeys or gets in the way or anything like that. It's different than that. He's like, you're not seeking war. You're not seeking total domination.
Yeah.
It's not domination win. It's win by, like, I don't want to say, like, you win by peace, but it's win by peace, for lack of better way of putting it or phrasing it. And then, obviously, one of the quotes or series of quotes that really stands out is the conversation between Loki and Odin. Upon when Loki figures out
that he's a frost giant.
So, this is Loki. The casket wasn't the only thing you took from Jotunheim that day, was it? Odin. No. In the aftermath of the battle, I went to the temple and I found a baby. Small for a giant's offspring, abandoned, suffering, left to die. Lawfully son. The frost giant king. Loki goes, lawfully son? Odin goes, yes. Loki, why? You were knee-deep in Jotun blood. Why would you take me? Odin, you were an innocent child. Loki, no, you took me for a purpose. What was it? Tell me. Odin, I thought we could unite our kingdoms one day. Bring about an alliance. Bring about permanent peace. Through you. Loki, what? Odin, but those plans no longer matter. Loki, so I am no more than another stolen relic locked up here until you might have use of me. So again,
That's
kind of
hard.
twisting the words, twisting the knife. Odin, Why do you twist my words? Loki, you could have told me that what I was from the beginning. Why didn't you? Odin, you're my son. I only wanted to protect you from the truth. Loki, what? Because I'm the monster parents tell their children about at night? Odin, no. No. Loki, it all makes sense now why you favored Thor over all these years. Because no matter how much you claimed to love me, you could never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard. And that just speaks volumes. Volumes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it carries a message about faith, in a way. Of basically Odin being God, in a way. Of saying, you were innocent. I want to give you a chance to serve as a banner of peace. And then we ourselves are kind of like Loki, saying, why? You look at, like, in humanity in general, you look at all the wars, everything, tearing each other up, everything that you want. It's like, what am I? Am I supposed to, like, what? Yeah. I don't. It's kind of hard to even kind of put into words, really. But like that last sentence, like, you can never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard. It's like you can never put someone in a position where you respect and acknowledge them that are lowly, or quote unquote lowly. Which is the exact opposite of what I think Odin's trying to get at.
Yeah.
You want to bring everybody together. And obviously, Odin in Norse mythology is more that domineering.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So they obviously changed Odin.
They made him more benign, almost.
Well, they made him more kind of regretful. Of like all the conquering and stuff that he did. Now, I'm not entirely 100% sure with Norse mythology what the whole thing with Odin, Allfather, is. But I do know that he definitely was the conqueror.
Yeah.
All that. So to see Odin in a light like they portray in the movie is a perspective that shines more akin to the human side of it, of what, like, gods, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of, like, Jesus, but at the same time, obviously he's not.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a difference and discrepancy within that.
Of course.
But I don't know, that one series of quotes hits hard, especially coming from like the adoption point of view, like, or even into the aspect of we're adopted into the family of God, grafted in.
Yeah.
Speaking from someone who's not of, like, quote unquote Jewish descent.
Yeah.
Like, as Christians, we are grafted and adopted into God's family.
Yeah.
So how often do, like, for example, me, how often do I think of in the position of Loki? Like, how often do I think of those things when looking at my faith? It's stuff like that that sticks out to me.
For sure.
Makes you think a little bit harder on some of the stuff you watch and different things like that. Now, I'm saying this years after I've actually watched the movie.
Right.
So, obviously, my thoughts and everything changed now as I've experienced life a little bit more. But it's some of these things, like, you can find, like, faith conversations within multiple different avenues and ways. Movies is one way. And we'll talk about a little bit of why Star Wars, like A New Hope, kind of sticks out, at least to me, and I will talk about that later at some point. But yeah, Ben, you have anything else to add? I know I've been talking a lot of time.
I think that's great. No, nothing off the top of my head. Just like I said, it's been a hot minute since I saw the movie, but
Yeah. So yeah, that's Thor. That's Thor. Just a little scratch off the surface. There's a lot of movie reviews that can go way more in depth.
yeah.
Again, we're just two pizza dudes talking to a computer screen currently. So
Your screen going flap, flap, flap.
yeah, with the wind. Yeah, hopefully you guys don't hear the wind as much. But I do know that we'll be heading more on the indoor side of things sooner rather than later.
Michigan weather.
As it is getting colder out, and the leaves are turning color, and the weather is not going to stay 70 degrees for much longer.
Mm-mm.
As in, it's not going to.
No, and I don't even think it's 70 degrees today. I think it's like 65.
No, it's like 65, but hey, I rock the shorts and t-shirt and as long as I can.
I'm not that guy. I refuse to wear shorts and t-shirts as much as possible.
Oh.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather. All right. Well, I think this week will be a little bit of a smaller episode, so we will catch you next time for Star Wars, which has a lot more meat. And we should be able to watch it beforehand because neither of us watched it beforehand, which maybe is a problem into actually talking about some of these things.
This went great.
Nah, it's fine. No, but we'll go next time with Star Wars and the original trilogy and only the original trilogy because that's Star Wars.
Superior.
It's superior. Other people might like the other ones. I do like the first three they added, so Phantom Menace and then all the way up to the third one. But the original trilogy is the best. And we'll be looking at the relationship between Luke and Darth Vader. Obviously, they delve into more of the backstory behind that in 1 through 3.
Yeah.
The aftermath of everything I didn't really care for as much with the newer ones they added, but I thought Rogue One was pretty good. Again, ties into New Hope.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I liked it so much. Anyway, that'll be it for this video. Leave a comment about different things or movies that you'd like us to cover, or just different topics altogether that you would like to see. And we will catch you guys next time.
Flippity flop.
Peace.